and attention of the physical body takes over from the mind. Right? And during sex, the ego, which is the surface of the body, becomes relaxed, isn't it? That's because the inner core is having its day now. At least we got something in there. One up on the ego. Ha, ha. That's why we're addicted to it. That's why we're sex mad. Because it's about the only bloody time that the ego is exhausted, right? And for just a few seconds, you have the raw tantric energy come out. That's why. Infants often, almost always put things in their mouth when they're born, right? Because they're knowing the thing through the mouth, through the taste. Not the brain, but through the body. The body is intelligent. We're down under, so I'll give you an anecdote right from home. Angus has gone to great lengths to explain AC/DC's music, including the instrument that he chose. It's all based on his small stature. He had very great difficulty playing other heavier guitars. And the choppy, syncopated, very bright and brash and sort of the chord styles that they use are actually not preconceived, but based on the fact that his hands were very small and the way he had to fret the guitar. The choice of, so what are we talking about here? The choice of guitar and the kind of music are all his compensation for his small stature and his inability to play in other ways. Now, doesn't this go for archery? Wouldn't this go for anything you do? Dance? Choice of partner? How many things is the language of the body dictating? See, we're all up here thinking it's the brain that's doing all the dictating. This anecdote about Angus Young is showing you that quite the opposite is the case. He didn't preconceive any of this stuff. He let his body show him what to do. And he accommodated that, and that accounts for that style of even the music that they play. The body dictated it. The brain responded, yes, but the brain responded to the needs and abilities of the physical body. So which one is superior? Now, as I said earlier on, language is not necessarily needed for communication. We have many other illustrators. In fact, they're even called illustrators. Non-verbal behaviors we use to highlight aspects of the words we speak. They illustrate visually what the words are trying to say symbolically. Many people use their hands in gesture to illustrate or highlight their speech. There's another one called regulators. These are non-verbal behaviors we engage in to regulate the flow of speech during a conversation. We use our faces quite often to signal that we're done, or waiting for, or even inviting someone else to speak. That's all in the body language, is it not? The tone of our voice regulates speech, informing others when we're finished speaking. In many cultures, gaze and visual attention regulate speech, as do gestures. So the body is very deeply involved in what we imagine is actually a mental process. Why do we know any of this? We've had 2,000 years of the antithesis of this. People who've made hay out of the antipathy to nature and everything else. And all this concept of up and down and depth and core and surface. Christianity and religion. Body is the prison of the spirit. And most of us do also just consider the body as sort of a means of transport, some personal possession or an object. There's me and my body. What, the two separate now or something? The body is where we begin and end. Remember? Schelling. Nature is visible spirit, spirit is invisible nature. The idea that we're just a bag of skin. The brain is in this sort of carriage. Alan Watts talks about it. The prevalent sensation of oneself as a separate ego enclosed in a bag of skin is a hallucination, which accords neither with Western science nor with the experimental philosophy religions of the East. This hallucination underlies the misuse of technology for the violent subjugation of man's natural environment and, consequently, its eventual destruction. That very simple misconception about the body's intelligence. When Reich talked about the core and the interchange of the bioenergy back and forth from the surface of the skin to the core and so on, a more poetic, aesthetic way of looking at that I have used as, it can be described as two selves. We've already spoken about the fact that we are a speaker and a listener. But actually we're 4 selves, because even the speaker listens at some times, the speaker part of you listens, and the listener speaks. So we're multiple selves. But if we take Reich schemata and understand that these are two, I don't want to use the word separate, but let's just use it topically, right? There's these 2 separate hemispheres of consciousness within. The surface, and it's focused on the world, and then the core, that is the true self, the imperial self, a bioenergetic state. We also agreed that this is lower, this is upper. This is inner, this is outer. This is the ego, and this is the self. Let's go one step further and imagine that there are also speaker and listener and speaker. There's a conversation going between them all of the time through bioenergy. An exchange of bioenergy perpetually, right? The English word intelligence is derived from the Latin word intelligentia, coined 2,000 years ago by the Roman orator Cicero. We use the term intelligence to refer to a number of different abilities, skills, talents, and knowledge, generally referring to our mental and cognitive abilities. It's a constellation of things. It's not just up here in the head. What we refer to as knowledge is the result of an endless and ever-shifting interrelation between the brain, body, and unconscious. Consciousness is the result of an exchange of information between these centers of intelligence, the result of their reciprocal dialogue. One network is forever discovering more about another in a similar manner as we gain increasing knowledge about other people when we know them. This inner dialogue between bioenergetic hemispheres cannot come to completion. It is a perpetually vital process. And they know this. The neurons even go to find out things through our body. The biochemistry works exactly this way as being described. That means that the brain, this thing up that's super active and hot up here in the skull, yes, it is merely the central processor of all of this conversation. Right? It's not the orchestrator of it. It is merely the center, the locus, where all of this is being processed. But as many mystics know, that center, that central receiver, can be deconstructed and the whole body can become the brain. Other parts of your body can actually become as intelligent as the brain. Now, of course, we know that this bioenergetic exchange does also occur between people, constantly. And it also occurs between the self and nature. The fact that you have these 2 hemispheres within is the origin of the mandalas, the square and the triangle. Right? The inner and the outer, the yin and the yang. Michael Gazzaniga, he says that when the embryo starts to develop, cells migrate and wander over its cellular mass. Everyone agrees that Sperry's view is more correct than not, and that it is likely that most of these cells process chemical markers on their surface that somehow tell the cell where to stop and hook up to another cell. It has been proposed that chemical gradients guide these processes. However, as these embryonic cells continue to differentiate, some of these cells become neurons, the building units of the adult brain. When the cell declares itself a neuron, this neuron becomes electrically active, a unique property and one that is important for continuing development. Once electrical activity is available, electrical signals are translated into biochemical signals which can in turn influence gene expression. Now check this out. That is, electrical signals can, by having access to the information stored in the genome, influence the operation of genes. In short, electrical activity that arises out of the embryonic cells that become neurons can actually turn around and influence brain development by influencing when and where other chemical processes appear in the developing process. Electrical signals can be conducted rapidly over large distances. No longer are cells merely influenced by the chemical process of the next cell or by a gradient that may pass over it. With the introduction of the capacity to conduct electrical activity, no cell is an island. Information from part of the developing embryo can reach across a great distance and influence neural development. Topological vicinity and physical contact are no longer constraints for the signaling system that contributes to the structuring of the developing brain. One among many examples of such influences is that events occurring in one hemisphere can influence the developmental events occurring at the same time in very remote parts of the other hemisphere of the body. The body is the intelligent one. The brain has its function. That's it. What he doesn't explain is, remember he was telling you that one thing leads to the other, right? The biochemistry being the basis, and then later the neurons and so on. He doesn't explain, and they never do, where the primal electrical energy originates. That is really the source of all of this intelligence in the body. They just tell you what it does. And even then it's taken them hundreds of years to find that out. This bioenergy, this electrical charge, is intelligent, obviously. What does that tell us? Well, we're too dumb. Our own bodies are smarter than we are. We're too dumb to admit that our own energy is intelligent. So, in the Reichian therapies and the polarity therapies, Shiatsu, Reiki, Qigong, Tai Chi, Aikido, Yoga, when you have this in mind, great things happen. Pick one, do it, or make your own. Better still, create your own movement, create your own thing, and get into this, because this is a magical act. If we put as much time into worshiping the body as we worship God, I hate to be blasphemous about this, our world would be something unbelievable today. It's about purgation, purification, right? Sanity equals sanitize. Sanity is the same root as the word sanitize, sanity, to clear the mind. And when those channels are clear, the doors of perception are clear, immediately that other communion happens, because as we said, the core voice is a silent voice. It's not speaking very loudly, nor will it ever do so until we're quiet enough to listen to its instruction. That's the wisdom body. I refer to it in my divination work as the inner oracle, or even the inner zodiac for that matter. It's what's known in the occult tradition as the communion with the holy guardian angel, not out there behind the clouds or in some other realm. Your own inner bioenergy speaking to you, your core imperial self, guiding and instructing you. You know how important it is? Aleister Crowley tells us how important it is. Magic is the science of understanding oneself and one's condition. It is the art of applying that understanding in action. That's what magic is. It's connected to the aesthetic experience in totality, but it's understanding oneself. In the knowledge and conversation of his holy guardian angel, the adept is possessed of all he can possibly need. To consult any other angel, to consult any other authority, is to insult one's angel, one's guardian, one's guide, is to insult it, which we do constantly. So the gates of heaven are not going to open to us. Food is going to be on the table and we're going to have a good life. Friends are going to be made and we just have this wonderful red carpet existence and the world is going to be in peace and harmony. When every day we slap in the face our own sense, our own inner oracle, we commit such blasphemy at the temple doors of the place which is the fountain of all knowledge and wisdom within ourselves. We spit and curse on it and run to the misguided for our guidance and then expect to be living in some sort of utopia. What kind of blasphemy is next? How are we going to invite that angel in? Even Christ said to his disciples, if they don't bring you in and treat you well, cast the dust from your sandals off of their porch and go your way. He said, David Cherubin says that mystical alchemy is a personal science, a sublime and effective system of self-initiation. Only you as a single individual can calculate and follow your way up the great mountain of hermetic attainment. All essential guidance is within you, in your innermost center of your heart where your holy guardian angel or inner self resides. To depend on any other thing other than your own holy guardian angel to accomplish the great work is to insult your angel, who is with you to instruct and guide you. All essential wisdom by which to achieve the great work is to be ascertained only within you. Nowhere else will you find this truth. And that is a certainty. And the very looking out is merely postponing it. That is the karma. This is the dharma.